We're ready if you are. Okay, I'd like to open the planning board meeting for Tuesday, November 1st. It is 6:02 PM. And this meeting is being televised live and video recorded. First up are administrative items, the 2/23 planning board meeting calendar. At this point, I don't know if anybody has any problem with it, but some months we have 3 meetings and some we have 1, so.
That's the September, that's the summer schedule
Right.
for July and August.
And we don't schedule them for election day anymore. That's good news. Okay. If
And
nobody
we
has.
haven't scheduled any, that I can notice, any work meetings yet.
Can't tell the different colors.
That would be blue, right?
Yellow, like baby blue. I think that we should do that. For instance, I'm trouble with contrast. So in January, there's 2, the 11th and the 25th.
You're looking at the 22.
Oh. Okay. I don't see any meetings in January.
The 10th and the 24th.
So the yellow are our regular meetings. So we have 2 every month except in the summer, except in July and August. And 1 in December. The question is whether we'd want to schedule work
Work
sessions,
sessions, yes, we're gonna need them.
either instead of regular meetings or in addition.
So you wanna choose some now? Or do we want our correct planning department to suggest them for the next meeting?
I would think we might think about when we might foresee a lull and take a regular meeting out of sequence as a work session. Like tonight's meeting, for example, is kind of light, and we might think that in February or something like that, if we knew in advance that we could stay away from public meetings,
Right.
we could take a regular meeting out of service and shift it to work. What do you think, Michael? Does that make sense to you?
That sounds reasonable to me, yeah.
Yeah, I think
So
that
better.
makes a lot of sense, but they're all public meetings.
No, I mean, they're all public meetings,
Right,
but
it's not
what I'm
public-
saying
public
is
no
that
public hearings and stuff.
is that it's, just not schedule any, public hearings for, one of these, regular meetings.
With the exception of A and Rs, because we only
Yeah.
have so much time to
Yeah.
do an A and R, so.
So that's what I'd suggest, and I'd leave it up to,
I would think if we are tackling some rezonings for this coming spring meeting, we'll need work sessions in the first quarter.
yep.
and fairly early in the first quarter, I mean, January, February.
Yep.
So, if you could squeeze in a couple of those work sessions in there, and when you're continuing things, try not to continue them to those dates. Okay, next, Brayback Lane, file number 18-005, C-FF, SW Coles as-built review. We need to sign Form O and endorse plan. So is that it? We've already approved? We're just signing?
We're signing, yeah. Did you read Derek's review for the as-built?
On the second page, the second bullet, he says bounds and drill holes as identified on the plan were found and noted accordingly, except for the rebar and cap at the end of the roadway. There should be, and it stops.
Didn't that happen last time?
The other week,
Yeah. I thought I asked him to.
did he get back to you?
No. If you wanna hold off, I mean, I can ask Derek what he meant, but
Yeah, I think it would be good. We could, I assume that, he's gonna say this should be completed. Are you here for that?
Some insights.
Yep.
Mark Boucher, Boucher and Associates. We prepared the as-built plan. I noticed that myself. That rebar and cap is there. It's possible that he didn't see it. I believe the reason for the fact that we set a rebar there, let me take a look at the plan. I think, and you can check with Derek, I think what he's probably, to complete the sentence, I think what he was probably gonna say is it should be recovered or flagged up, which we can easily do for him. We had done it with stakes on all the bound points, so I'm sure that the rebar is there. Just take a look at the as-built and see what it felt. It's possible that that one was so close to the stone wall there, not close enough for a drill hole, but too close for a bound. That's probably why we set the rebar there. If that's critical, and I mean, I don't know that it necessarily should hold up the sign off on the Form O, but we can easily flag that up for him, or if for some reason that it isn't there, which I believe that it is, we could reset it easily enough. There's numerous monuments in the area that I don't think the location of the roadway would be difficult to reestablish, but we
Sure.
could certainly do that if necessary.
Well, I think that we could approve and release subject to clarification of that, and we could hold the stuff here in the office, and once we're, have Cole or one of these two go out and look and see that it's there, they can release the documents.
Sure. I think it's there. I don't believe there's a surety on this one. I think it was a Form F.
Right.
So it's not a problem.
It's just documents, so, and they're already living there, so it's at the end of the lane, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was in the existing house.
This subdivision was to, they lost the driveway that had provided access was across a neighbor's lot, and that easement I think
Expired.
terminated, and then, so this subdivision then put the access to the homes that were down overlooking the river, put the access on their property. So,
So if nobody else has any problems with it, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to release all of the lots from the restrictions of the Form F covenant dated April 17th, 2019, and revised through January 31st, 2019 for the definitive subdivision plan entitled Definitive Subdivision Plan of Brayback Lane.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And there's a second motion, I think, that goes with that. I move to release the balance of inspection fees plus interest after payment of the final invoice to SW Cole.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I drove down there, it looks good, so. What's your pen?
No,
Somebody's.
that's Amy's son.
Okay, next is approval not required, A&R name. File number 22-004A, request by the applicant for endorsement of a plan of land showing 2 lots for land located at 333 Drift Road, map 52, lot 15. Were you up here for that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, again, for the record, Mark Boucher with Boucher and Associates. The A&R plan that you just referenced, it was a 26-acre parcel, approximately 26 acres, bought recently by Stephen Fletcher. And what the plan shows is an existing house up in the northeast corner of the property. And what Mr. Fletcher is presenting is a division to cut out a 2-acre lot around the existing house. And then he is granting a conservation restriction on the remaining 24 acres. I believe he's working with the Westport Land Conservation Trust to place the rest of that property under a conservation restriction. The house lot that we cut out has greater than 150 feet of frontage, and it's 2 acres and contains at least a minimum of 30,000 square feet of upland. So we are requesting that the board endorse the plan as an approval not required provision.
Suggestions from the planning department?
I don't have any. It complies as 143.4 frontage plus the 7.60, so that's over 150. Has enough uplands and the lot is big enough, so I don't see any issues with endorsing this.
So is any comments, questions? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve endorsement of the plan entitled Plat 52, Lot 15, 333 Drift Road, Westport, Massachusetts, prepared for Stephen Fletcher because the plan complies with the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81P.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you
I-
again. Have a
Thank
good
I
you.
night.
think this is a great project. I commend Mr. Fletcher.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where exactly this is.
Is this near his other property on Drift Road?
It's on the opposite,
Yeah, he lives in the stone house up at the head.
Yeah, so is this,
Not far from
Not far from his other property on Fifth Road?
Across from Amy's Way.
Yeah.
Across from Amy's Way, under the road.
This is a very nice conservation parcel. It has one of the tributaries, streams running through it.
It's really nice that he does this.
Yeah,
Thanks, Mark.
thank you. Okay, so next up is correspondence. A, Chapter 91 license notice, file number 22-005 CH 91 at 215 Main Road for Robert Blanca. And a Chapter 91 license is a dock, I believe. Page 24. So the question is, do we have any comments? It comes before the planning board. We have no jurisdiction over this, but for some reason, we must review it. So I don't see any reason not to acknowledge receipt.
This is not the dock that was controversial before. It's in the same general location.
I think it may be the same. I think it could be the
Same dock?
same,
Scaled down.
the same place, but a different dock.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure. It looks like it's on the West Branch.
Yeah, no, it comes
Yeah,
out
yeah.
off the point.
Yeah.
It's on the west side of the point.
Yeah.
But, as
And
you
it's-
say, it's just for information, right?
Right, and it's can't tell how many feet it is altogether. I can't add it up in my head because the things are too small, but it looks like it's about 60 or 70 feet long.
Yeah, it's a dock with a gangway and then a 28-foot float.
Right. Which I think is fine. Okay. Zoning Board of Appeals, notice 218 Cadman's Neck Road. And I believe this is, didn't I say 212?
No, it was like 280.
Oh, 212. Okay, just a notice of the meeting, and I think it's gonna be on November 9th, at 6:30. To hear the following petition for finding that demolishing an existing house and replacing with a single-family dwelling shall not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming use to the neighborhood as mandated by zoning bylaw Article 5, Section 5.2.3. The subject property is located at 212 Cadmus Neck Road and is shown on Assessor's Map 50A, Lot 2. I have heard about this, but I don't know anything about it, but I've heard people complaining about it. So, I wish you luck. I don't know if anybody has any comments. Then DEP notice of application for 212 Cadmus Neck Road. Do we normally get this? I don't think we normally do.
The DEP notice?
Yeah.
I don't think we normally do, no.
It's just correspondence that came in.
Mm-hmm. I see it listed here, but I don't see it. Okay, and then chapter 61 policy change.
So the Board of Selectmen is requesting comment from the planning board, if you all have any comments on this proposed policy. They wanted to know in particular that the entities that will be requested to make recommendations to the select board will have 28 days for that notice for the chapter 61A release.
What was it before, do you know, Michael?
I don't know.
I
That
think
was-
there's like, the Board of Selectmen has, I think, 90 or 120 days to respond to a request to release. And sometimes it took a while to get the questionnaire to us, and
Yeah.
it took us some time to meet, because sometimes, you know, we might have a month between meetings.
And I've always, because I am the planning board representative to the Open Space Committee, I've always been able to go to the Open Space Committee and tell them what
What's
our recommendation was, and that's been useful in their consideration. So having the sequence is useful in decision-making. So if it's that compresses the time schedule.
I don't see how it could work, really. It
Yeah.
has to go from the select board meeting, because that can be after the fact of their request, and then sending it to us, and it takes probably a week to get to us, and then it could fall between our meetings, or it could fall.
Right.
I would send a request back to the select board, asking how that's really gonna work, because I can't see how in some cases we can comply with that.
Yeah, maybe we should tell them they can have a good decision or a fast decision.
And I'm sure this is because of the last one for the petty property. That seemed to the sellers to take a long time for them to,
Would you like us to draft a memo to that effect and then
please,
send it to you and wait
right.
for your approval for the next meeting, or do
No,
you
no,
just want to sign
just
off
wait
on
for me
it?
to approve it, and I'll tell you to
Okay.
print it out, and
Okay.
I'll come in and sign it.
But we should emphasize that the select board has, how many days did you say, Jim?
It's in the,
Like 120 days?
it's like 120 days, or
Yeah,
at least
so if
90
they have
days.
120 days by law, why do they wanna make X number of boards act within 28 days when consultation between boards is actually helpful to decision-making? And we don't meet every week.
And, you know, to be frank, the people who have put their property into chapter 61, know what the deal is. I mean, it's not as if that's a big surprise. And I think, you know, they're getting a big benefit from doing it, and they're getting a 75% discount on their taxes on the property, and in exchange, they give the right of first refusal to the town, and the town has to have sufficient time to decide. Sometimes they can make a quick decision, but sometimes it has to be.
Exactly.
So we all set with that? Minutes of October 18th.
Chairman, I reviewed the minutes in our packet, and I'm prepared to offer a motion to accept them as drafted.
Second.
Any comments, edits?
Did we have, in this meeting, the presentation from, on disabilities? Was that
Yes, we did.
And was that at the beginning of the meeting? I'm just,
It's right here.
oh, there it is, sorry. Okay, yep.
I would just have one comment on it, where it says Gallagher would like to request a public hearing to change the rules and regulations bylaws. I would just put in governing the subdivision of land.
Whereabouts?
First paragraph on the second page, just so it's clear that it's the rules and regs of the subdivision of land.
I'm okay with that
Yep, I am
Yes.
too.
change.
Okay. I think we have a,
Accept that edit to the motion,
please. Okay, and there's a second for the edit?
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Invoices. APA, Mass Chapter membership for Michael Burris, $35.
I move that we approve the sum of $35 to cover the membership in the American Planning Association Massachusetts chapter for Michael Burris.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Planners report and assistant planners report.
Like mine's shorter, want me to go first?
If you want to, sure.
Warm up back.
Mine's just shorter. So I just have some updates on the projects that have kind of been circulating in the planning office. So for Maya Way, I requested that it be put on the Board of Selectmen agenda for the release of the surety, and Jim Hartnett had emailed me back saying that we need to notify Bill DeSpirito that that is what we intend to do and give him 45 days to respond. So I drafted a letter and I sent that today via certified mail. So December 16th of 2022 is the time that he has to respond to that letter to either to complete the work or to forfeit his surety, and then it can go to the Board of Selectmen and we can get along with that process. For Stacy Lane, there was an update from SW Cole last week, and I bullet pointed what Derek pointed out has been done. I touched base with the fire department yesterday in the cease and desist letter that we requested, that we sent to the building inspector requesting a cease and desist, that he issue one. None was issued, but in the cease and desist request, it did say that they need to apply for the subsurface water tank application, and the applicant has applied for that. It's not installed yet, but it is in the works. I believe within 2 to 3 weeks it should be here to be installed. The binder installation is hopefully going to occur by December 1st, but that is an unknown. And I have been talking to Ralph in the building department. Stacy Lane has requested more permits through building, and Ralph is not acting on those permits for right now. So I told Ralph to still hold out until, at least I gave this review to him from Derek, but to at least see what the board thinks about if he should keep holding the permits for foundations for Stacy Lane, or if as a board you think it's okay that Ralph continues to start issuing the permits again that they're requesting.
So I guess the question in my mind is, the permits that he's asking for are for additional lots to be built.
Yes.
And are we holding surety, or is it Form F?
There is no surety on Stacy Lane.
No surety. So, I know that after, I don't know if it's November 15th or December 15th, no
It's-
paving is gonna take place?
Right, after December 1st, you would have to approve paving,
We would have to approve it.
yes.
But when did the pavers stop paving?
I'm not sure on a exact cutoff date for that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
That's gonna be, anytime after Thanksgiving is open to the weather.
Yep.
They could shut it down at any time. So the concern here is when he's saying he's gonna have it done by what, was it December?
December 1st.
I mean, I think we should be looking at, just because of the existing building permits, that we get some kind of estimate for surety. And, I mean, if he doesn't pave it, people could be moving in before the plant's open again.
Right.
I mean, they'll open back up in April, but.
If he's a quick builder, he could have houses done and sold.
Well, I think that they're that far along that they could be ready in February.
But he couldn't sell them
Right,
without or releasing the lot, right?
correct, that is what's in
So-
the covenant.
But, so, I guess my question is that he wants building permits to put foundations in. And Ralph is saying, no, you can't do it right now. And he's saying he's gonna do the binder installation to occur hopefully by December 1st. What happens if it doesn't? Is what you're saying. And so the other question is there a date that you can't put foundations in?
Well, I mean, if he was looking for a foundation only permit, I wouldn't see a problem with letting him do that just to try to beat the weather if he's trying to do that. If all happens the way it should and the weather holds out and he can get a binder down, then he's in good shape. But if he can't, I mean, he's only got a foundation, he's gotta backfill it, and he's gotta worry about it through the winter.
Yeah.
Same kind of issues, but that's at his own peril.
Well, if the road isn't there, there's no reason to release the covenant, the lots under the covenant. The covenant is to assure that the infrastructure gets built. And, you know, if he gets the roads all graded, the infrastructure's in, if he's done most of it, then, you know, we could decide is it reasonable to release some foundations, and he's already got building permits. So he's already got building permits. And then, you know, if the remainder of the work isn't installed, at least getting the binder in, so you got something that's drivable if you move in here, then I think Ralph is correct, the building inspector is correct, and he shouldn't release those lots. And, you know, if he gets the binder in and he wants to proceed in putting we don't regulate the building, so if he wants to put foundations in and then he gets that in before the cold weather, the freeze sets in the ground, then he can build above the foundation. That's okay with me, but not before he gets the binder in. The surface has to be a drivable surface for the residents in. And,
And with the weather we've been having with the rain, he's gonna have trouble getting gravel in.
yeah,
And it starts freezing at night and morning. That's why they cut off the date for the pavement. So he's got his
Right.
work cut out for him.
Right, I saw them paving today in the rain on town roads, so
It was probably
weird.
was it Chapter 90 work or the gas company?
I think chapter 90.
so that would be my recommendation is, you know, Ralph is correct not to release further lots. And let's see where he gets.
Well, we don't, he hasn't released lots, all he's done is give building permits. We have to
I'm sorry,
release-
issuing building permits for the lots. If they haven't been released, then they shouldn't get building permits.
I'll relay that to Ralph. Next is Brookwood Solar. So Derek was supposed to go out, this last week to review the work, but he hasn't had a chance, but he will go out this week. And there's an updated punch list. The new project manager on Brookwood has been very easy to communicate with and, very much in touch. So I have a bulleted list of things that are complete, and Derek will go out and see, how they're looking. The paved entrance areas, you can see it when you drive by, that has been okayed by Derek. The rest are just from an email from Steve Martell that Derek still needs to go out and look at. And, we have not received the payment of the $150,000 for that.
Okay,
The next one is,
Amy, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Have you been out to the site recently?
I have not been out to Brookwood recently.
Oh. I did a little patch in my front yard, and I got plenty of grass growing, and these guys have been at it for 2 years, and is there any grass growing out there?
well, I give them at least a year, I mean, they've been,
Right.
so,
I mean, they have the stuff down in the front, you can see it, but there's no, I haven't seen any growth.
usually the growth requires a little topsoil.
Yeah,
I didn't see a lot of that out there. But have they come through with the deposit check?
no,
Thought they said they were going to, no problem.
that is what I was told, but they have not provided a check to our office.
Ask them.
Okay. Do you think it would be a good idea to maybe lower that amount based on, okay, all right,
Mr. Chairman, one of the things on that was too about the as-built, so we need to get the as-built information
Right.
before we lower anything.
okay.
And I think tell them that SW Cole's not going out anymore until they pay that, until they deposit that check.
Okay. Okay, so the next one is the Route 88 and Sullivan Drive Solar. That one hasn't started construction yet, but because of the permit tolling, their site plan and special permit are still good through February. So they want to start construction the third week in November, and Manny Costa will be the contractor for that project, and would like a pre-construction meeting to go over a timeline and a sequence of what they're gonna be doing to keep us in the loop.
So when was this approved? Almost 3 years ago?
Yes, November of 2019.
Yeah. So, I think we've learned a little bit since we approved that. The question is, you asked the question, should we request a bond for the civil construction of this? I don't know that we should or can, but if we could, I think it would be good. Similar to what we have on the other one. And I think that we need to ask them to do the same things we asked on the one, on Horse Neck Road. If it's possible to ask. that they need to come back to us with a tentative as-built on the site before they start putting panels in.
Okay.
So we know that the on-site stormwater controls are going to function with a reconstruction of the topography.
So this is, after they do the clearing and they do all the grubbing and they haul all that out, when they get it rough graded, you know, come back and show us, you know, they need to do a survey then to show what those conditions are. Because every one of these designs we get, and there's no other way they can do it, has the existing topography. And there's this giant make-believe, it's a real leap of faith, it's not a make-believe leap of faith, that after they stump all the trees and they pull up all the rocks and they get all the boulders out and they grade everything, it's exactly like the existing topography. And we know that's not true. And the consequence of that we see over and over again. You know, there are big puddles in the middle of the fields and everything. It doesn't affect the generation of electricity, and so they're perfectly happy with it. But the job always, not always, but frequently the jobs don't work the way they were designed, because they actually built on a site that has different conditions than they planned for. And the only way to cure that is when they get everything cleared and grubbed, rough graded, and then all the skidder tracks are there and all of that stuff, then come back and show us what you've got, and we'll make sure if you need to change the design, you change the design so it all still works. And not, right now, they're always trying to solve the problem, you know, as contractors, that is, oh, you know, this is too flat, or this doesn't drain, or there's a big bowl in the middle that wasn't there before. And so they're either trying to ignore it and hope that it doesn't rain, or they end up with these big lakes. And we've got a requirement to have pollinator species, and they grow wetland shrubs.
Right.
And they grow, you know, so.
And plus, I think we need to understand the electrical component more than what's been provided to us already. And Manny has questions about how that all works, the kind of conduits they use, the kind of junction boxes, all those things, and we need to know what they're proposing.
Yeah, I mean, we could do that at the kickoff meeting to make sure that we get to see what that is. You know,
And that, Mr. Chairman, I mean, and that should be done through the building department on that end, control construction. I mean, the civil end, I mean, the as-built, basically, these plans come through, and like that one that we're talking about on Main Road over here, they kind of, the proposed grades were existing grades. So it still is a proposed grade that they should be following when they're building it. So the as-built makes sure that they bring it to that grade if need be. If the topography changed, we're not saying, okay, whatever it is out there, that's what you're gonna live with. If it changes, there's a proposed grade that they need to shoot for.
Yep.
And then they'll eliminate these problems. And that contract is, I know Manny Costa, he's been before the board on where he lives in
Yep.
town. And I think a pre-construction meeting, he'll understand what we're looking for.
And then the question of.
He's a local guy,
Yeah.
like I was saying,
So-
so it's not gonna be the same kind of problem like we have over here.
Right,
we
but
know where it
he's
is.
not gonna do the electrical stuff.
No,
So the electrical connection, unlike the one on Main Road where they have 4 big poles right near the road, I think after that experience, we have asked for a different setup, and they are willing to do that.
Yep.
So let's have that discussion too, because we want to make sure that it doesn't impinge on the people who live on Sullivan Drive and make it look horrible, so.
I think that's too, even though, like this one, on our plan, for the civil end of it, I mean, we had no electrical, so they went back and said, you know, they drew circles on our plan, and that's why they could go overhead.
Right.
But we have a bylaw that says underground, so
Right.
even if this plan has those circles for overhead, I mean, we should discuss that in the pre-construction meeting, is this gonna be underground,
Okay.
like our bylaw says.
So, how much of a bond or deposit should we ask for? We would like cash. So, bonds are so difficult to administer, so, you wanna do the same amount like we did for Brookwood, 150? I mean, it's enough for them to worry about getting it back. It's not enough to
Yeah.
put
No, no, no.
put a monkey wrench into the system.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah,
that's what
yes.
we want, and we want their attention, and that's, I think, anybody would want the 150 back.
Yeah, this is a performance bond.
Yeah.
Okay, I can do that. Will Manny be the one attending the pre-construction meeting? I'll schedule it for next week.
Yeah, I can probably make it.
Okay. It'll be in person. If you need to go through Zoom, we can. I know that, Manny will be here in person, but I think that the developer itself, they're out of New Jersey, so they'll be Zooming in. We just gotta find a time that works for everyone.
So you do it in this room, so you can do a combined meeting, or you do it in the office?
We can probably just do it in the office on an iPad.
Okay.
Or in here, doesn't matter, whichever one. But, okay, that's good for that. I'm kind of at a loss for words for the harbor water study. I've contacted Frank 8 times from September 20th until today, and in every email, and Michael is also copied on these, you know, he says he's sorry for the delay, the memo is coming. I do not have a memo from him. I don't know what to do at this point.
Well, he has a contract with the town. I would bring this to Jim Hartnett's attention, and that you've tried multiple times. The report was supposed to be in September, it's now November. And just let him know that you've tried.
Okay.
And I'll talk to Jim. If he has difficulty, I think I can get someone to get Frank's attention in Sampson.
I don't know if that's incriminating or not, but okay. I'm just kidding. Okay, I'll run it by Jim Harnett tomorrow morning. Housing production plan, I sent an email to Liz and to Robert Barboza, which is the clerk for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And I'm just waiting to hear back, what members of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund are willing to help us through this process and really take the reins and guide us through the update. I'll probably just give Liz a call tomorrow, though.
Yeah, please. You know, we're doing this for them, and they should participate in some fashion.
Yeah.
So,
As for upcoming meetings, there's the Route 6 rezoning with Russ on Friday at 9:30. There is the Department of Housing and Community Development, the MBTA webinar. I don't know if any of you would like to attend, but Michael and I have signed up for it. It'll be a lot of information on becoming either an MBTA community or an MBTA adjacent community. They're to be determined, it's the Serpide Westport Route 6 stakeholders meeting. They sent out a poll of what days are available for everyone, so I responded with my availability, but I think everyone else is still, they're waiting on everyone else's availability.
So which Route 6 stakeholders meeting is this? This is for the State Highway Department?
I think it's for the Route 6, the improvements to make it,
Improvements that they may present to us?
yes. And then last, there's a planning board meeting that's scheduled for December 27th, and I'm not sure if you want to keep that or cancel it. The 23rd is a half day for the town hall. We're off the 24th, we're off the 25th. The holiday is observed the 26th for Christmas. So I'm not sure if you want to keep that meeting or,
I don't think we need to. Some people may be away, so
that's what I was figuring.
I would say cancel.
cancel it.
Okay. That's all I have for my report.
Alright, so for my report, the first item to talk about is the hazard mitigation grant program. I contacted MEMO program staff about our eligibility to apply for this. They let me know that we're still eligible to apply, so I submitted a statement of interest with their program staff that was received and accepted. So I've prepared, the next step is to prepare a letter of intent for the application. That is ready to be submitted. It is due December 5th. However, I would like to wait to submit it, to just get it in front of the Climate Resiliency Committee, to get some of their thoughts on it, and also for them to entertain a motion to support the HMGP application. And then after that, I'll submit it over to MEMA program staff.
Michael, is there a local match for that?
There is a 10% match that's required for it, and it can be through staff time. So I've worked it out with Jim to contribute, I think, $1,500 in cash match, and then about 40 to 50 hours of my time as an in-kind contribution on it. I think I don't have the budget in front of me, but I budgeted about $23,000 or $24,000 to develop a hazard mitigation plan. We'll talk a little bit more about consultants, but I know Serpent has expressed interest in assisting with developing the plan. They've not done one in the past. I know you provided a couple of suggestions. Jim Hartnett's provided some suggestions.
Yeah.
So, but that's if you know.
Where does Jim suggest we get the $1,500?
He didn't. He told me that there's a line item for cash match for grants.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Because
it's
I'm not sure that they funded it last year, because
Mhm.
we're the ones who asked them to do that, so you might ask them if there's money in the till. So,
He said that he told me, I think that there's somewhere like $15,000-$16,000
Okay.
available. So there's money there.
There's money
for
there.
it.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Next is an update on some of the things I've been working on for the Route 6 corridor. As I'm sure you all know, we did not receive funds from the MassWorks grant program. So following that, we sent the folks at DEP a rebuttal letter, and I started looking into what other possible funding resources are available, either through grants or loans. We've talked about funding through the USDA, and I've reached out to their program staff. They've confirmed that gave me a very preliminary confirmation that we would be eligible to apply were we to form a water and sewer district in this service area. Typically, I think they only serve this loan program only would typically be for communities of 10,000 people or greater,
Or less.
or less. With our service area, it'll be about 7,500, and they said that they have flexibility to take that into that reduced service area, or that reduced population into consideration. So that's good news. I included in an attachment just an overview of the loan and grant program in the packet. They do require creation of a water and sewer district prior to application of the program. And as a follow-up to this, we're going to meet with the Tiverton Tiverton Wastewater District on Thursday to discuss the process that they went through to secure loan and grant funds through this program. This is how they set up their water and sewer district, was through this program. So we've reached out to them to kind of pick their brains about what that process looked like and what expectations we should have. I also contacted the EPA regarding the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act loan funds. This is a program that they said that we could potentially be eligible for, and the program rep asked to set up a meeting with us, with myself and some other members of the planning board. The program rep noted that we could be eligible up to financing to cover up to 80% of the project costs. Very preliminary discussion and acknowledgement that we could fit within their funding scheme. So there are a couple of dates here that they proposed. These would be
Tomorrow or Friday?
Yeah, two of these don't. I think it's supposed to be November 4th, 11 a.m. to noon. November 7th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and November 8th, 1 to 4 p.m. Those are the three main blocks that are possibilities.
Looks like Monday's the date, if we're gonna do that.
Monday the 4th? That's Monday? This Monday?
Monday's
It's 10.
Monday's Friday.
10/4 is come and gone, 11/7 is the next date, right?
Yeah.
Well, unless
I
it's
think it's
11/4.
11/4. It's probably.
11/4 Friday.
Yeah, I think that was Friday. I think I put in the wrong dates here.
Oh,
But November 7th and November 8th, those are definitely two dates that she suggested.
What about the 7th? That's a Monday?
yep,
Is that one of your free days? Usually?
yes, I can do that.
So the 7th, and what time? She said between 9 and 1 p.m.
Do you?
I'll defer to you.
I can meet at 9.
Okay.
This is a Zoom meeting? Or in
I
person?
would assume so. Yeah, I mean she's based in DC, so whatever
Oh, okay.
whatever client they'll want to use is yeah.
Do we have a date for the debriefing of Mass?
We do
Right.
not yet. We also have not heard back from the Clean Water Program either, regarding the work that I did with some of the census block groups. We haven't heard back from that yet. Okay, so next I've got some work that I prepared. There's a memo in this packet. Actually, I prepared a memo for Jim Hartnett. He asked us what are the implications if Fall River votes to become an MBTA community, and what are the implications for Westport? When do we need to change our zoning to enable multi-unit development? at a density that the statute requires. And review of a couple of different materials, the answer is that we don't have to make any changes to our zoning immediately. However, we don't have to change anything immediately because it'll take a change in the state statute in order to pull us into the framework to require the changes in the multifamily zoning. Serpent anticipates that the state will make these amendments to require communities to incorporate the multifamily zoning requirements. And so I'm recommending that as a part of the Route 6 corridor zoning revisions, we also get a head start on incorporating those necessary changes in that framework. In the Route 6 area, it's going to be obviously the area that it would make the most sense. We'll need water and sewer in order to accommodate more residential density. Serpent is hosting a webinar on November 8th to provide more details about what some of the communities surrounding the areas surrounding Fall River, New Bedford, because they're getting the commuter rail stations. They're having a webinar to let some of the surrounding communities know what their statutory obligations are likely to be moving forward. And so I'll be tuning into that, and I will let you know if there are any other items to be aware of.
Just as a preliminary look, I sent you the thing that Serpent had at one of our previous meetings about the density for adjacent communities.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a proposed change to the statute that exists today that would require adjacent small-town communities to do less than the 50 acres with 15 units per acre, which is 750 units. And I think that if the density of the town is less than 500 per square mile,
Mm-hmm.
which we're 200 and something per square mile, I think, then there's a different metric that you have to adhere to. And if you're of such a size that I think it's something in the neighborhood of 5% of the housing stock that you have currently. And I don't know what that is. So say it's 7,000. That would mean 350 instead of 750, which is,
Mm-hmm.
it's still a lot of housing units, but it's still probably a lot easier for us to swallow than 750.
Yeah. Yeah, to your point about the residential density piece, so I brought that up with some housing and community development staff, and they've reiterated that we would still be classified as an adjacent community, and there was a letter that was sent from Mass DOT saying that Westport would be considered an adjacent community. I'm not quite sure how that shakes out with our residential density, because I've done the same. I don't, it's definitely below that threshold, so.
So we are, we're saying we're an adjacent community when we talk about wastewater, and how we're gonna tie into Fall River with water and wastewater. So when it comes to mass transit and, the housing requirement, would seem pretty hard to say we're not an adjacent community. But if you're going to provide high-density housing, wouldn't it make sense to be doing that in the same area that we're doing the infrastructure on water and wastewater? And is that something that we're planning now?
Yeah, that's something, as a part of our meeting with, or coming meetings with Russ, for the Route 6 rezoning initiative, that'll be something that we'll wanna be mindful of looking forward, because that is, like you said, that's the area where it will be, where it will make the most sense for,
And is there a
Dense
funding
housing.
strategy that helps accomplish both those goals, do you suppose? Both housing, water, and wastewater?
it's a good question.
I asked the question
Yeah.
several times, and they said no.
No?
I said, you're gonna, you know, this is gonna, we don't have any water and sewer. We
Yeah.
need water and sewer for this. Is there any money for that?
Yeah?
And he said, no, not from them, not from the housing people, so. So, it's gonna be somewhere in between 750 and 350, housing units that we're gonna have to try to figure out. Part of the law doesn't require you to have the infrastructure.
Mm-hmm, that's true.
So you could put it up there, we'd never get water and sewer. It never gets developed unless the developer wants to bring it in. But for that kind of density, there's, you know, you can do package plants, like up at Nokichoke Village, but they don't even have 15 units per acre, I don't think. So, I don't know how to do that.
Well, I think that it may be important for us to raise the light on the connection between these two issues, that this development is constructive progress for Westport, and it is good planning to have business and housing development along this corridor. But it requires supportive infrastructure. And and we have this confluence of the train coming down right nearby. It's going to accelerate growth. And we have the need, which we've known for a long time, for water and wastewater. And these all come together. This is a bad analogy, in a perfect storm, where all of this happens at the same time. And, but it's happening in the right place for Westport, which is the Route 6 corridor. And so, the last thing we can afford is to have people think in silos. We can't have housing people say, we only do housing, and we can't have water and wastewater people saying, we only do water and wastewater. We have to have people understand that all of these things connect, and they connect in the Route 6 corridor when it comes to Westport, because we understand we need to provide high-density housing and business development, but they need expensive water and wastewater infrastructure. And you can't do the housing and economic development before you do the water and wastewater. They all connect. And so our leaders on Beacon Hill and our delegation in Washington have to say, yeah, this is a good thing, but, you know, it needs to be funded.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's hard to try to align ourselves with some of the state priorities when the things that will enable us to achieve those priorities, the funding's not there to help facilitate.
But if they
Our
see
efforts.
that vision, and if you help paint that vision, how all those things connect, and they do not work if they're not connected, right?
Mhm.
They work if they're connected, they don't work if they're not connected.
Yeah.
We attempted to paint that very picture with our MassWorks grant, and it was rejected, I think in part because, nothing happens in Westport, we're not gonna waste our money.
I know, well, we can't accept that, you know?
No, we're not, we're up for round two.
Yeah.
So,
If they can't talk to us about adjacent communities, and use language like adjacent communities, and then say, well, nothing happens in Westport.
Right.
so to that end, to kind of try to build some connections between some of those pieces, I reached out to some folks from the Community Compact program, and I was just curious to know, I know they don't put dollar amounts on what kind of grant funds that they offer, but I wanted to see, what could we potentially shake out from that program. And I contacted them to see if there were if there was any programming that we could potentially participate in for the Route 7 sanitary water and sewer. They do not fund any sort of capital investments, so unfortunately that was kind of a dead end there. But they do offer grants for other planning producing plans or planning projects. And so one would be that I was considering talking to them more about would be the hazard mitigation plan, trying to see what kind of grant funds they could contribute for us to pay for a consultant to augment the HMGP application. And you can apply for 2 projects a year. So I included a list of a sample of the types of projects that they would consider giving funding to, either for a consultant, or sometimes there are smaller grants to help actually fund the project itself for smaller scale projects. So that's just something to think about.
But you might want to look at the Community Compact program. I think that there's a requirement for the town to agree to become in the Community Compact before you can get grant funding.
Mhm.
So I think they'll give you a grant for the preliminary thing, and I can't remember if we've done that. And then after you do that, you're eligible for other grants.
Mhm.
But you don't get the second round without the first.
Right.
So, if we did it, we would have done it with Serpent, so you might ask Grant King if he knows anything about it. And then there's the Green Communities, also. Have you looked at that?
No, I haven't looked at green communities.
So there are requirements for that as well. And I think we have done some of the things. I'm not sure that we have committed to be a green community. But we have electric vehicles in town, we have charging stations, and that's part of the green communities requirements. But again, there are small grants, they're all small grants, but
Mhm.
there's small grants available.
Yeah. And that is all I have.
Okay, what we're talking about with the adjacent communities is on, I don't know what page this is of this thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, on page 6 of this handout.
Yeah.
And, I think that came from, the same folks that are telling you that we're an adjacent community, but that write-up came from them. So I don't know, or the wording came from them, Serpent wrote that, but I guess you'll find when you go to the webinar.
Yeah, I mean, I was told by Gene Fox, one of the project managers for the Fall River line, that we were an adjacent community, so,
She wouldn't know. It's not her.
yeah. Well,
So-
Jim Hartnett directed me in her direction, so I thought, hey,
Yeah, I
you
know
there's
Jean.
a,
I know Jean, and
Yeah.
and I think, Mr. Bullard knows Jean Fox too. She was part
Yeah.
of the South Coast Rail outreach.
For a long time.
She still is,
Mhm.
but she isn't the authority on this.
Sure. That's fair enough.
Okay, matters not reasonably anticipated? Oh, I'm
Nope.
sorry, short-term, long-term planning. I think we have a couple of people here that would like to talk about potential zoning bylaw amendments.
Yeah, last year we met,
Yep.
it started off like in August, we had working group meetings to come up with a bunch of zoning changes, and we successfully passed several.
Yeah, we did.
Identify yourself for the record, please. Oh, Roger Menard, Chairman, Zoning Board of Appeals.
Jerry Catino, Vice Chairman.
There were some that were passed over and some that we didn't pursue because they
Right.
were just way too complex.
Right.
We're just curious, we didn't do that again this year. Is there still enough time to propose something to get it into next year's?
I think if they're not really involved, yeah, I think
Well, I
so.
was thinking, I went through the ones that we passed over, or matter of fact, I looked at the one that failed last year. If
Yep.
you remember, Russ had provided us with a humongous
Sign
write-up
bylaw.
on signs,
Yeah,
which was a good start, but I think it was way too complex.
Yep.
And probably way too restrictive. But I think it's a good strong man for crossing things off and tweaking,
Mhm.
rather than starting from scratch and writing something.
Yep.
And I think that's still a sore point in the town as far as trying to manage signs so that we don't have these, humongous signs all over the place. So if we do have time to put something into the next, town meeting, I would propose that we start another working group meeting
Mhm.
and identify, obviously we can't do things like, we also talked about Airbnbs, which is a big problem, but not gonna be something we can solve in a month.
No, no.
So,
but-
and if there's anything else that we could do short term, but I hate to lose the bubble on, we sort of plan about every year trying to
Doing
whittle
something,
away at
right.
those things that need to be updated to bring us up to the 21st century. And I hate to lose the bubble.
I agree, and that's why I had them reach out to you to see if there's anything, so, signs, I think, if you can look at the existing bylaw for signs, and we can tweak some, and you guys sponsor it, that would be great. We weren't very successful last time, so I think it was, as you say, we bit off too much, and we didn't really pay enough attention to it in the beginning. And we really fell apart when they talked about, political signs,
Mhm.
and that wasn't well addressed in the bylaw, so, if you wanna do some preliminary work on that, we have Russ coming to see us this week, the same guy who wrote the sign bylaw. We can briefly talk about it. We have a little bit of money left over, I think, from last year's contract, like $2,000 or $3,000.
I don't know how much, but I recall conversations that we have money left from a prior
Yeah, we have
contract.
a tiny little bit. We have 35,000 for redoing the zoning for North Westport for the commercial district and in anticipation of the water and sewer coming to North Westport. And that's been approved for funding from ARPA through the county. So Bristol County has approved that as our ask for our percentage of ARPA money that comes to the state. The state gives it to us, and they give it to the county for us. And they've approved using $35,000 of that for our rezoning. So we're gonna be doing that with Russ, the same guy.
I mean, is that something that you think, that sounds like
A lot.
a lot.
Yes.
That's 2024.
Yes, I'm thinking that's not next year's
No,
vote.
that's not next year's time.
No. That's, that's gonna require a lot of meetings and a lot of.
A lot of thought, a lot of
Mhm.
outreach, a lot of reach out to the
The
businesses.
MBTA adjacent zoning, all of that's wrapped up in that, and in complications of potentially taking the zoning overlay, the STOD overlay district, and making it a district.
Oh,
I mean, essentially, we have two zoning districts in the town.
right.
You know, we have, and, you know, the character and the potential of Route 6 is a lot different than the business district here in the central village, and shouldn't the zoning be different up there, particularly if it has sewer and water and all of those things, but it's.
Is that something else they're gonna be talking about during this next session, of bringing
Yes.
up the business districts and making the village district?
Yeah, well, we're gonna leave for now, we're gonna leave the village district as it is
Okay.
and change the one up there.
Change the,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
So, and then when we have caught our breath and we have time, then we're gonna try to make sense of the other business districts that we have. But we don't have time to do it this time, or money, so.
So,
What do you think we should try and I'm all for picking off one or two things. I thought with the sign ordinance, as I walked out of the building, listening to the debate, that maybe if we took the Las Vegas sign ordinance and floated it as a model, maybe that would pass. That's what I got from the debate on the floor. And so I don't wanna touch that, but I think that, for a while, but I think, as we were talking, you know, the issue of, what is Route 6? And that is different from Central Village, and how do you define that? You know, perhaps that takes some thought, because so much attention is being focused on Route 6. And that's substantive, it's different, there's a lot of attention on it. That might be the place that we wanna really spend some time thinking about from a zone, you know, in addition to all the other ways we're thinking about it from a zoning standpoint.
The other thing that we might think about is, I think the state cannabis control just either has a potential change or has changed it to allow for, I don't know what you call it, but like cannabis bars where you can partake at a location. And if you have an ordinance that allows like real bars, you're gonna be out of luck if you don't have some kind of zoning for that, because it'll be allowed by right if you don't talk about it.
If you don't put
Specify.
something on paper, then they can do what they want.
Right.
Yes.
So we need some help with that, and we might ask Russ about that, but it's brand new, within 3 or 4 weeks.
I think Jerry, last year when we had our working sessions before the town meeting, really summed up the business district here is, you know, his question was, what isn't prohibited in the business district? And, you know, and it's,
What is or what isn't?
what isn't?
Yeah.
You know, it reads as if, first of all, it's very difficult to figure out how much you could do, because it's all wrapped up into parking. I mean, there's no FAR, there's no lot coverage, there's no kind of mechanisms. And then the height only applies to residences in the business district, so, you know, we can have as tall as they want. And
If you have sewer and water.
right, if they had, right. I mean, what keeps us from having that, you know, we have a good example of, there's a little piece that has sewer and water, and what does it look like? It looks like 4-story hotels. And we have places that don't have sewer and water, what does it look like? Used car lots, right, you know, so, you know, and it's in the same zoning district, right?
I have a concern about the zoning. I'm not sure anything about what Russ is doing or what you got in mind there. I'm not reading much about that. My concern for a long time has been the way our zoning is that it's either commercial or it's residential agricultural. And people would be very surprised if and they happen to live in a commercial district, they would be very surprised if something very undesirable from a homeowner's point of view is built right beside them,
Yes.
okay? Because they don't realize that. So I'm not sure, I'm certainly not a zoning expert, but I'm not sure if we shouldn't be looking at, and maybe that's what Russ is gonna talk about, where we have zoning, at least along that stretch of Route 6, and ultimately around here, in the village, that sort of zones by the undesirability or desirability, whichever you want to call it, of the type of activity that it is. So it's not all of a sudden you've got a recycling plant and you've got an elderly housing or a medical facility right next door. I mean, we almost have that right across the street from here. So anyway, that's a concern that I've had for a while, so I don't know what direction we're going, and also the depth from Route 6, that some of this stuff would take place. So I want to mention, you were talking about the funding earlier for some of this, and also for the sewer and water. I'm a member of the Infrastructure Oversight Committee regarding sewer and water, volunteering on that too. And we had a meeting within the last month with Senator Rodericks and Representative Schmidt, and I had brought up an issue there about, going back to John's comment about silos, that I felt it was important that we take whatever projects are currently contemplated for the Route 6 corridor, and at least talk to each other, try to plan things together. Perhaps that includes funding. Like John said, you can't have housing if you don't have the sewer and water, you can't have all this multifamily, vice versa. There are 3 things that I'm kind of aware of, and probably some that I'm not aware of, and that is the sewer and water project on Route 6 I'm talking about, the rezoning, and the third one is, I guess I'd call it highway improvements and or safety. That is actually going on between Westport and Dartmouth, as far as I know, the Mass Highway. And so I would hate to see us tear up the roads, put a sewer and water line, and then 6 months later or a year later, they tear it up again to calm the traffic. They use that terminology, calming the traffic on Route 6, and sort of making it look very different than it does today. So anyway, I guess my concern there is that hopefully we have enough liaisons of each group that we can kind of plan it so that these things go along on a timeline and on a planning basis, with each other. So that's my comment about that.
Well, I think that one of the things that probably will happen along Route 6 is that we will get multifamily housing growth. I mean, you look at La France, that's multifamily housing. It's just transient, right? And I don't know what's desirable and what's undesirable. You know, I come from New Bedford, Regency Towers, 11 stories of market rate housing. It's tremendous for downtown because all those people live and shop and, you know, support the economy. It's a great thing. And I don't think anyone sees it as undesirable, even though it's very, very high density.
When I say undesirable, I'm not talking about housing, I'm talking about the businesses.
Ah, okay.
Types of businesses.
Yeah,
That could go in, like
So-
I used the example,
A
recycling.
car crusher.
Right next.
Yeah, right.
Right next door to
or,
medical
yeah,
center,
all of the car lots.
nursing home.
Yeah,
I don't
But-
think a car crusher is an allowed use.
yeah,
It's just grandfathered in places, so.
right.
Well,
But I think that especially, I mean, as Jim knows, because we were both on this South Coast Rail Task Force, and Steve Smith used to tell us all the time, you know, Southeastern Mass is the fastest growing place before the train gets here. The train is only going to make that even greater. And so it's how do you accommodate what's already happening, which is growth, and how do we make sure our kids can live here? How do we make sure that it stays affordable and that you don't have people taking, you know, down houses and building houses that nobody can afford, that don't even have water or, you know, access to sewer. It's crazy. I was talking to one guy who said, you know, I had a house I bought in the 50s for $50,000 and it didn't have water. Nobody cared, you know, because it was a $50,000 house. Now the same house is worth $2 million and it doesn't have water. Now it's a scandal, right? It's only a scandal because the same house is now worth $2 million. But, you know, that's the craziness we have. But so I think that, you know, I don't know how long we want to talk about this, but I think if we focused on what should the zoning be in that corridor, and we present that at town meetings, saying this is a place where we want to channel growth, you know, there's going to be not everyone, but a lot of people are wondering why is Brian Corey drilling wells right near Partners for something that's gonna go on across the street. Is that's gonna be chapter 40? You know, I'm sure you guys are scratching your heads.
40B.
Yeah, 40B, you know, what's going on there? So you wanna think about growth and where should it be? And so let's think about how we channel growth where it should be,
The other thing I wanted to mention.
not next to
when
Angeline
you-
Brook.
when you're planning, is that as of right now, the plan for sewer and water is in 3 phases, but they're really only talking about 2 phases. The first one being from White's through Route 88. The other one, at least in the current discussion, is held off for some period of time, over the years, from 88 down to Lincoln Park. And that's the area that probably would have more potential of things in that second phase.
Commercially or residentially? Commercially or residentially?
Well, residentially, I think. But there's some limit to, well, I don't know what with the STOD, because the STOD takes a larger area. That was more like business oriented. There's not that much distance from White's to Route 88 as there is from 88 to Lincoln Park. So we need to keep that in mind as well,
Well-
in the zoning, planning, and in the planning for construction. Another separate thing, we're talking about things that maybe could come up at this town meeting. And I'm not certain, but I watched your meeting, when, Mr. Gallagher came in and talked about the, sidewalks and so forth, and line costs there and so forth. As you know, you're dealing with an issue right now with one of the projects. And I think you just voted tonight to do something on, the, regulations, subdivision regulations. But to my knowledge, that's not part of our bylaw. So we have a part of our bylaw that intersects with what you're dealing with right now with Oak Ridge. And that is the independent and assisted living bylaw, and that is a bylaw. So I'm gonna make a suggestion that we look at that bylaw and see if that needs to have an adjustment besides the subdivision control
Regulations.
regulations. If that bylaw might need to have an adjustment to call for sidewalks. So if
Well-
that did, that would be fairly non-controversial and quick.
So if we had water and sewer, I can foresee more of these things going up with greater density. And we should really adjust for that density if we have water and sewer. So there could be one for away from water and sewer and one for where there is water and sewer. And we need that kind of housing just as much as we need every other kind of
But you
housing.
might for on the sidewalks and
You do.
one.
You
But
do.
from what I can see, the only thing in our bylaw right now that allows or prescribes, other than 40Bs, which is not part of our bylaw, for high density would be the assisted and independent living.
No, we have open space residential, OSRD,
Yeah.
and that allows
Should we look at
30,000.
that for possibly sidewalks?
I think it requires sidewalks.
Does it? I'm not familiar with that. Yeah. So anyway,
I haven't
that's
looked
just-
at it for a while, but I think it does. But
But I don't know that the assisted living and independent living requires it in the bylaw, because if it did, it probably wouldn't have got through the original planning board.
it was on the plan.
What's that?
The sidewalks were on the plan.
Yes, but
They didn't get built.
They got negotiated out by the walkway.
On the
around
outside, right.
outside. And, so anyway, and if they were in the bylaw, you probably couldn't get negotiated out. So anyway, that was just one suggestion I would have. The sign bylaw, I don't know, it's been attempted in the past, and attempted last year, and it is so messed up with difficulty, you know, go from a little political sign or a sign for a nonprofit fundraiser this weekend to, you know, flashing signs. I don't know, I mean, it'd be great if you could do it. I think that's gonna take more of your resources. I feel that you guys and the planning board, your plates are gonna be full for the next couple of years. That's how I see it.
I agree. So, I guess, for instance, if we're talking about North Westport in terms of changing the zoning, we have an unrestricted zone. And you talked about how the zoning is gonna impact the residences that are in the business district. The unrestricted zone is 95% houses. And that's gonna be a real effort to change that.
About 99% woods. I don't think there's a whole lot of.
No, but whatever is there are houses, there's
Yeah, that's correct.
no
Well, we had,
maybe one business,
yeah,
but
we had a junkyard, auto salvage yard.
a bus place or something. There were buses all through the woods, if I recall. So, old buses.
But we could look at trying to, with this thing you're talking about with Russ, maybe you might wanna get rid of it unrestricted. They already got rid of a lot of it.
Well, the whole town was unrestricted.
At one time, yeah.
So, no, I agree. Do you want to participate in this discussion with rezoning in Route 6?
I'd like to be informed, if I could be, I don't need to be a voting member, I mean, just sit in a meeting, on occasion, I could do that.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
When these meetings get scheduled, make sure that, they get invited, because they're working with the nuts and bolts of the zoning as much as we are.
And thank God we don't have to do what you do.
Well, I say the other way.
So, anyway,
By the way, I think non-controversial thing that we should bring up at town meeting would be that you folks on this committee, elected officials, receive a stipend, just like some other ones do. I know that's not very popular, but
well,
I think you guys
I
put
wouldn't
more
propose
time
it,
than
but
we
if
do.
you wanna propose it, it's okay.
Let's not do that.
No. I don't know of any planning board anywhere that's paid. Boards of Health, Conservation Commission get a little bit, Select Board, assessors, but the planning board, I don't know why, never.
But you guys put in a lot more work and time. Anyway, that's my comment.
But it's fun. So, we have our first meeting with Russ. I don't know if you want to do that. When is that? Friday?
Friday at 9:30.
Friday at 9:30.
This Friday.
In the office.
But if we had little things that we could knock down, maybe we do some this year, but, we're definitely working towards 2024.
But, you know, it doesn't mean that we can't do some of those
You
things.
can- no,
We can do it, it's probably better to do it incrementally than this huge thing that's gonna take up the whole town meeting.
I agree with that.
I
Or we-
looked at the list of things that were thrown out.
Yep.
when I met with us. And, things like short-term rentals, dog licenses, that's not controversial, but it's also not important.
Right.
We're doing it, and we're not in sync with the state rules with dog licenses and kennels. But the town clerk issues permits and licenses, so it's not really hurting anybody. Trailers and storage containers, detached accessory apartment, changing the square footage, we did that.
We did that.
Through. There is a little something pinching about the agricultural bylaws. Solar, wind turbine, cell towers, we wanted to tighten that up a little bit. Incidentally, just for your knowledge, we've been directed by the court through a settlement between the town and the cell tower on Drift Road and
Mhm.
88. I don't think anyone was real happy about any of it, but in any case, we have a meeting coming up shortly. The cell tower company is coming into us for a very limited thing. We've already been directed, all townhouses have been directed to expeditiously issue the permits for the cell tower, but with the conditions that we on the zoning board had put into place, and fortunately the court went along with that settlement. But they're coming in for basically two little things, shrubs and.
Shrubs, just shrubs.
Yeah, shrubs and,
No, they're gonna
instead of
do-
having a shed,
They don't have a shed, so there's
they won't have a shed like they originally planned, they're just gonna have the equipment on a slab. And so, I mean, that's a real big deal, right? So anyway, that's where we stand on that. But, and then the home occupations, we talked about that, and we did get something that.
We did pass something last year.
Right, we
But
did.
we also
Now we
passed,
see what happens.
we also passed something for the cell tower regulation.
Yes.
We did.
Yeah, we did. So,
Right.
it's different than the one that you rejected, right?
It is, but I'm
Yes.
not sure. that it was
They
also-
now have to show that they actually studied alternatives, and they have to tell us why they chose the alternative they chose.
That's correct.
Right.
We'll see how effective that is.
Right.
So then there was something about the stars that we talked about, table uses in the sign, so. That's what I had on the list, so we covered a lot of it.
Yes.
Well, I think last year we also passed the agrivoltaic.
Entertainment?
We changed
Agrivoltaic.
We changed the definition.
We changed we included agrivoltaic,
Right.
Yes.
and we allowed that as a use. And I'd like to have it a preferred solar way, so that they have to at least demonstrate to us why they can't do it. So, I don't know how we can do that, but I don't think it'd be a hard thing.
The drop from, what was it, 16 acres to 12,
Yep.
Yes.
right? Is that gonna hold up?
I don't know.
I've been watching some court things lately that
I haven't seen any message from the Attorney General
Attorney General.
that it's good or not good. I don't know. Still, it's a
was-
long time, so I don't know.
Didn't we get a thing in from?
I thought in August, I thought we got something that said that they all
Yeah.
passed.
They all did pass.
So I guess
That-
I guess that's okay then.
The AG approved that.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure.
yeah.
But I've also been reading about some court cases that are saying, oh, that's too restrictive.
Well, the big court case that our town attorney passed around to everybody was in two towns, and the access to the solar was in one town that didn't allow that use in that area. And they only had 2% of the land that could be used for that. And it wasn't anywhere near where this access was, so they denied it. But the Supreme Judicial Court threw it out and said, you're too restrictive, you have to allow it. So,
We'll see what happens with that.
I think that's what would have happened. If you recall at town meeting, there were a lot of people who wanted to restrict it much further than the 12 acres. And somebody suggested, well, a 250-foot setback from all boundaries of this would be good. And I said, I don't think that would pass muster. I asked town council, and he said, that's right. I don't think that the Attorney General would approve that, because in most pieces of land, you wouldn't have anything left.
There wouldn't be enough for
Right.
a rating.
Mr. Chair, are you ready for a motion to adjourn?
I think, do we have anything else?
No,
Yes.
we haven't had anything else for a while.
Matters not reasonably anticipated? I'm not hearing any, so then I would entertain.
So, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.